Hello there, and thank you for watching this video. I'm Laura Dougal, and this is my colleague Sarah Turner, and we're both maternity return coaches and working parent coaches. And we're putting this video together today. We'll be focusing this month on looking at the reason why people are coming for and looking for maternity return coaching. We just released a blog which is aimed at you if you are a maternity returner and you're looking to put something together for your HR department or your line manager. And then this video is really aimed at you if you're a HR director or working in the HR team and you've been tasked with putting something together to support your maternity returners in that phase. So Sarah and I both talk to organisations a lot of the time, and we're hearing a lot of the same stuff. So we just thought it would be useful to share 5 of the top main reasons that we're hearing that people are looking towards maternity return coaching. So should we just kick off? The 5 areas are, I will let you speak in a minute, Sarah. the 5 areas that we're going to look at today are attraction and recruitment, retention, career progression, well-being, and building a supportive ecosystem. So do you want to start, Sarah, with attraction and retention?
Yeah, thanks, Laura. And I think one of the things that I think is really interesting here, and this draws on some of the work that I do in that diversity and inclusion space, is some research by McKinsey. And I was just thinking we should put this in some kind of notes that goes with this video so that people can take a look at it. But McKinsey research that's really pointing at companies that have more than 30% women executives tend to outperform. And so what they're looking at is the value of diversity at that top level. Obviously, it's more than just gender, but for the purposes of what we're talking about today, actually, if having a greater diversity at a gender level at that top level of the organization means the business is going to outperform, then you need to have a pipeline in order to feed that. And so really thinking about how can you attract, and we're talking specifically women here at the moment, and we will kind of talk more broadly about parents shortly, but how can you attract talented senior women into your organization, really letting them know that you support them as a working parent, whether they've already had a baby or not, is a really important message. And of course, when we think about employer brand, your reputation is what people say about you. And I have, relatively recently had a conversation with an organization, and they were sharing with me that one of their challenges was that their employees were talking to somebody in a competitor organization and actually feeling as if they were hard done by, because as a competitor organization, their offer was better than what they were experiencing. So there's something really powerful just really in terms of, why should I work for this organization? Offering them maternity return coaching, working parent coaching, letting them know that you support them as a parent is a really powerful message.
Absolutely. And I think that's such a big part, isn't it? Because you've got to keep in mind that the people that you're interviewing are likely going to be being interviewed by your competitors for similar roles at the same time. So they will have a good view of what's on offer across the board as well. They might know more than you do. So you want to be in that position where you've got an offer that's equal to, if not better than, your competitors. And just on that as well. So I had a conversation with an organisation recently who said that more and more they're being asked at interview to, what is your maternity return policy? What's your maternity policy? So having to, on the spot, be able to talk about this kind of stuff. I think there's a real move at the moment where being a family-friendly organisation has been sort of something that people talk about, but now people returning to work, or women in these roles, they want to know, what is it? They want to know the real facts, the data, but what is it that they're going to be giving me to actually know, rather than just ticking that box, what the reality is. Do you agree?
Absolutely. And I think for many women, particularly if they've been trying to get pregnant for a while, it's not always a straightforward journey. If they're going to look at a new organization, then they are going to be thinking quite seriously about, well, if I'm going to get pregnant, have my baby here, what is the maternity policy? Because actually, if it's not going to be what I need it to be, then I'm going to look elsewhere. It can really be as black and white as that for some people.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that, I think as well that with the whole attraction piece, that building positive stories of others who have gone through that system, if you like, gone through that transition while they've been working for you, is really powerful to have somebody that new starters can talk to about what was it like when you experienced this, maybe building it as part of a buddying system or using that as a sort of employer story is really, really powerful as well in terms of traction.
And of course, I guess we should reference the fact that, we're now, hopefully, she says, post COVID, post the chaos that ensued. But actually, the good thing that came out of it was that we all suddenly had to adjust to hybrid working. And of course, I know there are lots of organizations now that are changing and wanting people back in the office, but it has made it a lot easier to ask for that flexibility in terms of days working from home and that sort of thing. And there was some research, and we're going to reference it a few times, by Careers After Babies, and they found that actually 86% of new mothers want to work 3 days or more. So there is a big demand for flexible working. So if that's something your organization is able to offer or able to accommodate, massive sales pitch opportunity for attracting skillful women into your organization. If you can offer that, then it's going to be a real sell.
Yeah. Shall we move on to retention now?
Yes, huge arguments here, aren't there?
Yeah. And we were saying just before this video, weren't we, about how we've sort of found previously, this is quite a new field, this is quite a new area of work, isn't it? But now there is more research being done, there's more surveys being done, there's more coaching in this area being done. So there's much more research to support the fact that coaching at this time does have really tangible benefits.
It does, yes. I mean, let me just reference one of these. So this is some research that was done by Nikki Segno and Jane Moffat. And what they found is that where they put in place a parent returner program, so this is slightly more of a mentoring focus rather than coaching, but it's of the same kind of essence. They found that 3 months post-return, 60% of new parent employees who had gone through that program felt truly back at work, compared to 39% of new parent employees who hadn't gone through that program. And when we talk about truly back at work, I mean, we're talking, this is a huge life career transition, becoming a parent. And we were talking before, weren't we, about just some of the emotions that women in particular will experience. And so actually supporting them to be able to smoothly return, which is effectively what this research was pointing to, can make a huge difference in terms of that retention.
And the other stat that we talked about earlier as well was that 98% of women want to return, but only 13% say it's actually viable for them to do. And I think that's taken from the Careers After Babies report as well. So, there's just a huge disparity between those numbers. So anything that you're able to offer at that time, I'm thinking that these kind of coaching conversations are where they have the space to be able to unpack some of those solutions or think about conversations we need to be having. So it can bring down that gap. So so retention is a big reason.
And I was just thinking about one of my clients, and I see this so often, is where as a new parent, you come back to the organization and you want to hit the ground running. You want to be the version of you that you were before. But actually, everything has changed. Your life has changed. You have changed. Your circumstances have changed. And your ability to perform in exactly the same way is probably quite challenged. And that can make you think, I can't cope, can't do this. I'm going to have to leave. This doesn't work for me. But bring in a coach and create that space to have an opportunity to have a conversation about, well, what might your options be? What are some conversations that you could have? What are some things you might want to say no to? How might you reframe that? All of those sorts of things can be so powerful, and it enables that new parent to feel heard, seen, understood, supported, all of which is going to impact on that retention. And of course, again, Careers After Babies, 80% consider not returning, and 85% will leave full-time employment within 3 years. So it's huge, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, which kind of leads quite nicely into the career progression part as well, which is where I always, thinking that a lot of the people that I work with generally come back to work feeling more ambitious and more driven than they did previously, which is quite, to get your head around that. I think there's a huge assumption that, she's had a baby, she won't be able to do X, Y, and Z, or she won't want to do A, B, and C. And I'm not saying that is always the case, but just in terms of career progression, providing coaching where there's a space to be able to think, right, okay, how am I going to stay visible at work? How am I going to get across that actually this is what I want? How am I going to make it okay? I know, line managers, team leaders are often quite frightened of saying the wrong thing. They don't know what they are allowed and not allowed to say. So in helping the person who's returning to use their voice and say, actually, this is my personal experience and this is what I want. I am looking for career progression. There's another reason why people are looking for maternity return coaching, because even though, I would say that maternity return coaching is quite specific in that moment, but there's so much happening at that time that who's to say what that individual will want to focus on.
And it can be a really long-term career investment, can't it? Because, you know, one of the things I often talk about is maternity is just a period in time. I say just, it's quite a long period of time and it's quite a big moment in time, but it is a moment in time. And actually, you know, thinking about the longer term implications of if we support that woman to have a smooth return, to feel understood, to feel encouraged to have those kinds of conversations that she needs to have, you know, she could still be there 5 or 10 or even 15 years later. And she might even come back and have further coaching as she thinks about different career conversations. And I often have that sort of longer term relationship with a lot of my clients where I've, you know, coached somebody through their maternity leave and 5 years later they're back and saying, I've worked with you before, can we continue working because now I'm being promoted too, or, you know, and so it's a real investment for your female talent, which kind of goes back to that pipeline point we opened with.
Yeah, and I think just to stress that it's not an either or. It's not a this is the only way to support your employees in terms of career progression. It's just an example. I'm working with somebody at the moment who is doing a leadership and management program at the same time as we're doing maternity return coaching. So the things that we're doing together around communication and resilience and work-life balance, she's taking that into the work that she's doing in the leadership program. And she's bringing things from the leadership program into the coaching. So it just sits really nicely alongside each other.
Yeah. And again, coming back to the kind of why would you want to have coaching as opposed to maybe just offering a parent support group or, you know, a conversation with the line manager. So there's a big, strong argument around wellbeing, and we've sort of touched on this already, haven't we? But again, in our experience, women are often feeling vulnerable. Often their confidence is taken a knock because they've had a substantial period of time away from their role. If they've had somebody covering their role, the maternity cover, that can often cause uncertainty and anxiety around what are they better than me. And then of course there's the overwhelm, just with juggling the demands of your job with the changed circumstances at home. And it's that general sense of how on earth do I make this work?
And that's with well-being as the actual topic, you know, that's with those things as the actual topic and the benefits that you can reap from coaching in that area. But again, there's more and more research now. I'm involved in a research project right now where they're looking at actually well-being or improved sense of well-being being a byproduct of coaching, no matter what the topic. So just looking at, even if you're just looking at workplace goals or workplace topics, as a byproduct of going through that process, coachees are having an increase in their sense of well-being. So just, there's an argument there. But if your agenda sort of spans as a HR director, you know, spans across the well-being agenda as well, you could be doing a piece of work over here on maternity return coaching and impacting your well-being agenda without having to do any more work.
Yes, and of course, then it fits in more broadly into your broader diversity and inclusion agenda. So depending on what your priorities are and, you know, what the organizations need to focus on, you know, thinking about coaching as part of that. And you mentioned this idea earlier of a sort of supportive ecosystem. So coaching alone, if it's kind of offered in the absence of support for line managers, or flexible working or whatever else it might be, a supportive culture, then it can end up being a bit of a sticking plaster. So there is value in thinking more broadly, that kind of more strategic or macro view. So, you know, looking at things like how are we supporting our line managers? Do we have a parent network? What is our culture here? How do we make it possible where we can for people to work flexibly?
And that's it. I think we never say, do we? You know, I'm never saying that it's a standalone maternity return coaching will solve all of these problems. It is one thing amongst a suite of many interventions that if you're really serious about building an organisation that is genuinely family friendly, where you are going to be attracting women and supporting them in their roles, then it's a great part of a suite of things that you could offer.
And of course, what we shouldn't forget about is the men, because actually enabling women to be successful in these roles is often, you know, not that all women are in heterosexual relationships, but those that are, men that are able to work flexibly and therefore support their partners to return to work and to take on those big jobs. But also, of course, all working parents, because people will become parents in all sorts of different circumstances, and not excluding those, being inclusive and making sure that all parents, no matter what, are given that support if they want it, if they need it.
Yeah. Anything else to say, Sarah? Do you think we've covered everything?
Wow, we could go on for ages, couldn't we? We believe in it. We believe there's a strong argument. But I think what I'd just like to say is, if anyone is watching this video and they want to find out more, then just get in touch. We're very happy to have a chat and talk it through with you and help you think about how you might put your proposal together.
Yeah, and like Sarah said earlier, we'll put a link to that McKinsey research. And it might be worthwhile, actually, also, we'll add a link to the blog that we've written, both for you as an individual and the blog that's coming for you if you're a HR director as well, because it will add into this content.
Yeah, brilliant.
Thank you very much for watching.
Thank you.